Hello everyone and welcome to this video in which I would like to dive into the topic of healthy relationships. My name is Agakura. I'm a highly sensitive person, and as a life coach and NLP practitioner, I work with highly sensitive people. Now, the topic of highly sensitive relationships, no, healthy relationships, is one that I do believe to be very relevant for many of us. I think many of us grew up actually thinking that there was something wrong with us because our trait, that of being highly sensitive, how often did we find ourselves actually being the subject to criticism, to ridicule, to being told off, or even aggression? Sentences like, just toughen up, or here you go, here she goes, here he goes crying again, or why do you always have to be so sensitive, or this is not the place to show these feelings now, and so on and so forth. And I think that these painful, and I would go so far as to call them traumatizing experiences, actually led to us learning, most of us learning how to hide and mask our feelings, because here's what, according to research, highly sensitive people make up around 20% of the world's population. The maximum I've heard in a TED Talk was 30, but even 30, it's still a minority. So what happens when you're a minority and you have a trait that many people do not seem to like or be able to cope with? Well, you learn how to mask as good as possible. I literally, during my, while growing up and being an adolescent and young adult, I became a master of masking. I've said in a video that I recorded before that I grew up watching so many horror movies because I wanted to be part of the girls group that would hold pajama parties and then watch horror movies. And even though those were so triggering and way too much for my nervous system, I just sat through them because here's what, I did not want to be excluded. And that's what most of us learned to do. We didn't want to be ridiculed, criticized, told off, or excluded, and so we learned how to mask. And then also, I think we learned how to lower the bar of actually what kind of people were good for us as friends. A little bit like, oh my God, I'm so happy they want to be my friend. I'll just let them into my life. And this has led to many of us also over the years finding ourselves in the presence of people that whose presence was not good for us, was not healthy for us. And I think one of the things that is difficult is like breaking that cycle and just beginning to build and cultivate relationships that are healthy and that honor us and our sensitivity and honor our being. Now, I just thought that I would bring up four criteria that I think could be helpful to start when it's about starting to cultivate healthy relationships. And what I also believe about these four criteria is that they apply to any kind of relationships that we're looking at, whether it's a partner relationship, whether it's friendships, family relationships, or work relationships. Now, here's the first one. They tell you that you and your presence are good for them. You make them feel good. You're there. You're present when you listen. You show empathy. And so you've been told that, oh wow, you are good for me. Now my question is, are they good for you? Is their presence healthy for you? In other words, when you are around them, do you feel good about you, about who you are? See, it's not just about, I think as I said before, some of us, me included, um, may have developed this thing of, oh my God, anyone who wants to be my friend, I'll just let them in because I've been criticized so often for being the way I am, and so lowering the bar. And then you may find yourself with people who are like, wow, I really love spending time with you, and it's always so enriching, and I always come out with new ideas. Maybe you're the eternal sparring partner for other people's ideas, and then when it's about you, then all of a sudden they move away and you're left there, or just making them feel good about themselves, but then actually what you receive is constant criticism about how you are, or it's just maybe people that are taking so much energy from you. So your presence is good for them because you're feeding them, feeding, but then since they're taking energy of you, is their presence good for you? First thing. Second thing, is your sensitivity welcome as your trait, as part of who you are? Or is it only welcome when it shows up in you being the empathic listener, the all-present listener? But then when it's about being sensitive about things that happen to you, or when it's not serving them directly, are you being told off for being too sensitive? So it's okay when I tell you something that's upsetting and you show me empathy and maybe even cry for me, but please don't show up in a sensitive way when it's not about me. Does that happen? Now here's another thing that you need to watch out for, because you want to be with people, A, whose presence is good for you and who make you feel good about who you are, and for people who unconditionally accept you and your sensitivity as a trait that is part of you, beautiful trait, and do not expect you to put it on and take it off like a hat according to what's good for them, right? Now, when you are around them, do you feel that you can be the way you are? Celebrate life the way you are, show up the way you are with all the different facets? Or is it more about having to constantly adjust to their idea of you, to how they see you? I know it's very similar to the second that I just mentioned, but there are also nuances. So it's not only about, the second was about your sensitivity, and now it's about everything that that is also part of you. Things that you enjoy, things that make you laugh. Are you able to just be goofy, or to just be serious, to just have all your moments? Are you allowed, or do you actually have to somehow be careful so that you're not again told off, ridiculed, or criticized because you are actually who you are and how you are? That's another thing. And then the fourth one, are your boundaries accepted? When you say no, is it accepted, or is there a constant, oh come on, really? Oh, I don't really believe that's so serious, or just not listening to your boundaries and constantly saying, yeah, just having the feeling of not being respected in your boundaries, or not being heard. Are you heard? Are you seen? Are your boundaries heard and seen and respected? Now, here are just four of the things that I would like to invite you to start watching out for when you are with the people that are part of your life, be it a partner, your family, your friends and colleagues, and so on. And another thing I'll tell you, also be willing to teach them. So sometimes we've been in these dynamics for such a long time, that all of a sudden when we break out of them, it's also a challenge for the people in our lives. So it's not about them getting it the first time. It's about them wanting to get it and wanting to cultivate this friendship even in this new dynamic. For example, one of my favorite examples for this is my parents. My parents had a totally different idea of who I should be when I was an adult, and I don't think it's something that that's only how do you say that only happens to HSPs. I think it's generally, most people will tell you, I didn't turn out the way my parents wanted me to be. So they had this idea of a career I should have with the education that they had enabled me to get, which was amazing. They gave all, but then they also had the idea of what I should do with it. And then I remember when I decided to study classical singing and become a classical singer, ooh, that was not easy to communicate. But would you believe that with the years, do you know that who was in the first row whenever I performed in the city where my parents lived in Nairobi? Do you know who was always in the first row? It was mom and dad. And I remember getting this picture where they were actually hanging up flyers, posters for a concert, because I wasn't living in Nairobi, so I was going to travel there, and I had sent them posters, and I remember seeing that picture, and that's what I mean. We weren't on the same page from the beginning, and I'm really getting emotional now. And unfortunately, my dad is not with us anymore, but which makes it a bit more emotional. But it wasn't about, people have to be on the same page as of the moment you start communicating and actually showing the real you and being the real you. But then appreciate it when they come along, and that's what counts. What counts is like, wow, that's new. Okay, but I get it. And just know that you are worthy. You are worthy of healthy friendships and unconditional love. And be willing to teach those people who are around you, and then see who is there and who is willing to just continue in this new dynamic. And then if you see that there is no acceptation whatsoever and it's actually turning against you, then that's the point where it's good to take a distance and to say, okay, until here. Don't be afraid of losing some, because you are going to win other friendships. My friendships have either evolved in the last years, and some that just were not friendships that were able to hold who I am. They broke away, but I have been meeting amazing, beautiful souls in the last year, and I can only tell you it's worth it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid like we used to be as kids, like, what if nobody comes to my birthday? What if they don't want to play with me? I just have to be happy if people... No, just know that you are a precious soul, worthy of all the love in this world and worthy of living a life full of joy, including healthy and beautiful relationships. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again in one of the next videos.